Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back into another edition of Key Time Sports. It's Key Time coming back to talk about the NBA slate, Wednesday night slate of games last night. And there were two games that really caught my eye last night. The first game I'm going to get into is the New York Knicks and the Portland Trailblazers. Now, I've always said throughout the season that the New York Knicks are an average team. You can see that Mikal Bridges last night, he had a great game. He was 13 to 21 for 33 points. OG Anunoby, he had 23 points. Carl Anthony Towns had 21 points. Miles McBride had 11. Josh Hart had 11. So that's the New York Knicks starters. Now, as far as their bench needs a little bit more work, but when you have Tom Thibodeau as your head coach, he doesn't really emphasize the bench. And then when his teams have gotten to the playoffs, the starters the starters are wore out and the bench cannot hold up. So last night, Precious Achua, he had 0 points. Mitchell Robinson had 3 points. Cameron Payne had 6 points. Landry Shamet had 6 points. But one thing last night that I noticed is that the New York Knicks, they are able to generate offense outside of Jalen Brunson. They are, because you can see it with Miles McBride. Now, there are some times where he doesn't have a great shooting night, but he had a great shooting night last night, and he came through when they needed him the most and on that last second shot. So, the New York Knicks right now, they are still at the third spot in the Eastern Conference. All signs are all signs show that they will stay in the third spot in the Eastern Conference come playoff time, which is in a matter of weeks. So now, when we when we look at their when we look at the New York Knicks depth chart and injuries, now they do have injuries to a couple of key players. Jalen Brunson has an ankle injury, and Ariel Akaporti, he is out for the next 4 to 6 weeks after a torn meniscus injury. So hopefully Jalen Brunson can come back, even though that he's nursing that ankle. Hopefully he can come back for the playoff for that playoff push. So the next game I am going to cover is the Phoenix Suns and the Houston Rockets. One thing about the Houston Rockets that I haven't talked about enough is their young core, and they seem to get it. They do. They seem to get it because you can see when it comes. First off, I'm going to get into the Phoenix Suns player statistics. Kevin Durant, 19 points. Reese o- Royce O'Neal, 2 points. Mason Plumlee, 4 points. Bradley Beal, 25 points. Devin Booker, 19 points. Ryan, and that is their starters. For the Phoenix Suns, starters have been up and down all season, and basically the Phoenix Suns as a whole team has been up and down all season long. You can see it. They don't have good defenders when it comes to them playing defense, and they try to outshoot and outscore everybody, and that will also get you beat. So, bench production for the Phoenix Suns: Ryan Dunn, 4 points. Bobo, 7 points. Ozzy Aguilera, 8 points. Tyus Jones, 11 points. Damian Lee, 3 points. Colin Gillespie, 2 points. Ty Ty Washington Jr., 0 points. So when we look at the Phoenix Suns, and right now the Phoenix Suns are still on the outside looking in of the play-in tournament. They are in the 11th spot of the Western Conference right now. From what I see from the Phoenix Suns, it might be another first round exit for them. Another first round exit for them because outside of outside of Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, and Devin Booker, where you gonna get consistent scoring from? And I've been saying this all throughout the entirety of this season. You don't have any legitimate bench players that can come over that can come off the bench and take over a game. So the Phoenix Suns, they are between a rock and a hard place right now. They are. So I'm going to shift on over to the Houston Rockets. The Houston Rockets, one of the youngest teams in all of the NBA. Let me tell you, Houston Rockets, their starting five is completely balanced when you look at their stat lines. I've looked at their stat lines throughout the entirety of this season, and let me tell you, I've been saying this for a while. The Houston Rockets are a force to be reckoned with. When you look at this, you see Terry Eason, 15 points. Dylan Brooks, wow, Dylan Brooks, 19 points. He's really not a scorer like that, but he had a good night last night. Alperen Sengun, 20 points. Fred Van Vliet, 10 points. Jalen Green, 29 points. We all know that the Houston Rockets are led by Jalen Green with his 29 points. And then we get to the bench production. Now, every team in the NBA right now is trying to figure out all of the teams that are qualified to go to the playoffs and that have a good enough record to make it to the playoffs. They're trying to come up with their playoff bench lineup. So right now, you can see that bench production on all teams are in a disarray, but it's the last few weeks of the season. Everybody's just trying to get prepared for who they will play in the first round of playoffs. So back to the Rockets bench statistics. Jeff Green, 0 points. Jabrir Smith Jr., 8 points. Cam Whitmore, 0 points. Jane Sean Tate, 0 points. Steven Adams, 1 point. Jock Landale, 3 points. Aaron Holiday, 6 points. Nate Williams, 0 points. And Amen Thompson and Reed Shepard did not play. So as far as for the Houston Rockets right now are at the fifth spot. They're at the fifth spot right now. And the Houston Rockets, I believe that if Golden State continues to surge, the Houston Rockets may be in that sixth spot. Now, there have been a lot of stuff that over the last 36 hours that have fluctuated in the Western Conference. Oklahoma City Thunder last night, and I'm going to get into that game a little bit later, but Oklahoma City last night, after their win, they clinched a playoff spot. Memphis and Denver, they have won a couple games over the last 2 or 3 days, and now both of them, Memphis and Denver, are respectfully 2 and 3. The Lakers, they've dropped down to 4. So right now, that fourth spot, let me see, the fourth, between the fourth and the sixth spot is only 3 games. So the Lakers, this is a critical time for them not to lose their grip on their success because they need it. So now, the Rockets, back on the Rockets on the other hand, if they make it to the playoffs, they would be playing, as of today, if the playoffs started today, they would be playing the Los Angeles Lakers in the first round. But there's still 3 more weeks left in this NBA season, so there's a lot to unravel. But I like the Houston Rockets. I like what they're doing. I like it. That is why I say anybody, and I do mean anybody, can come out of the Western Conference. Because remember, Oklahoma City, I like what they're doing, but I've been on the fence. I've been on the fence when it comes to OKC all throughout the season. Last season, they had the number one seed. Lost to Dallas. They lost home. Well, they had home court all throughout the playoffs, but in critical times, OKC did not step up to the plate and deliver. And that is why I'm not all hands on deck when it comes to OKC just yet. I got to see a little bit more. But I like what I'm seeing from the Houston Rockets. So that's all I have for the Phoenix Suns and the Houston Rockets. The next game I'm going to cover is the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Denver Nuggets. Now, Minnesota Timberwolves, they are at the seventh spot in the West right now, and the Denver Nuggets are third in the West right now. So last night, I knew that this game was going to be a very entertaining game because we know that we know what the Minnesota Timberwolves have at their disposal, and we also know what the Denver Nuggets have at their disposal. So the starters for last night, the Minnesota Timberwolves, they had 25, well, Julius Randle, 25 points, Jaden McDaniels, 16 points, Rudy Gobert, 11 points, Mike Conley Jr., 8 points, Anthony Edwards, 29 points. The Minnesota Timberwolves starters, this is balance for them. This is balance. Outside of Mike Conley, everybody else scored in double digits, and that is balance. Now, when we get to their bench, like I said, every bench in the NBA is going through this transition lineup period for the playoffs. So Josh Minot, he had 0 points. Luke Garza had 5 points. Nas Reed had 8. Dante DiVincenzo had 10. Nickeil Alexander Walker had 3. And Jalen Clark, Terrence Shannon Jr., and Rob Dillingham all had 0 points. So, the Minnesota Timberwolves, we know that their starters can pretty much take over a game, but when we come to the playoffs, can these benches for all these teams keep the momentum going and pretty much raise the momentum to another level? That is what we are thinking about when we think about these teams that are going to the playoffs. Now, credit now. Minnesota Timberwolves over the last 3 seasons have had great regular seasons, but they have failed to deliver in the playoffs. And as far as the Denver Nuggets, y'all already know how I feel about their bench production, but I'm going to start off with their starters. Michael Porter Jr., 10 points. Nikola Jokic, 34 points. Russell Westbrook, 19 points. Jamal Murray, 12 points. Christian Braun, 6 points. The bench, Zeke Naji, 0 points. Hunter Tyson, 8 points. Peyton Watson, Spencer Jones, Valko Kankar all had 0. PJ Hall had 2. Jalen Pickett had 3. Trey Alexander had 1 point. The Denver Nuggets, when it comes to them going to the playoffs, everything they have as far as the starters is okay. The bench production. Now, I've been saying this throughout the entirety of this show, but the New York Knicks have their bench is not great and it's not bad. It's just average. But you cannot have average bench production play when it comes to the playoffs because some games your bench is gonna have to carry the team. And can the Denver Nuggets have the type of quality players that they need to come off the bench and carry them for a game 3 or 4 because because the opponent has shut down Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray. Who knows? But the Denver Nuggets bench has to improve, and they have to improve quickly for their foreseeable playoff run. The last game I am going to cover, and this is going to be well over a few minutes. This might be an NBA Finals preview. So, America, OKC Thunder and the Boston Celtics played each other last night. When it comes to both of these teams, this matchup is like mano y mano. So, Chet Holmgren, 23 points. Shea Gildress Alexander, SGA, 34 points. Aaron Wiggins, 0 points. Luke Wes Dort had 13. Cason Wallace had 14. So those are the Thunder starters. The bench, Ozami Ding had 2. Kendrick Williams had 10. Isaiah Hartenstein had 11. Isaiah Joe had 11. So the Thunder, what have I been saying? I said this a few minutes ago. The Thunder, we know that they have a young and up and coming team. We know the Thunder what they can do in the regular season, but what can they do in the playoffs? Outside of last year, the coach that the OKC Thunder have last year was his first time being in the playoffs in his era under his regime. Now with the Boston Celtics. Now, Jason Tatum had a good night, 33 points. Al Horford, 18. Drew Holiday, 9. Derek White, 22. Jaylen Brown, 10. The bench last night for the Celtics didn't really have a good night. Torrey Craig, 0 points. Sam Hauser, 33 points. Luke Cornett, 9 points. Peyton Pritchard, 8 points. So now, when we see the Celtics, we all know what the Celtics they have. We all know what the Celtics give us on a night-to-night basis. We know that the OKC Thunder, they have had playoff failures over the last 12 years. I'm going back all the way to when Kevin Durant was there. So, the Celtics, we know what they can do in the playoffs because the Celtics right now, they are just going through the motions. We know that the Celtics are going to end up with the second spot with the Boston Celtics. We know that they are going to end up at the second spot. So now, what can the OKC Thunder do? Gain more experience in the playoffs because OKC, they are going to have to show me. They really are. They are going to have to show me what goes on, and what have they learned from last year's experience? Because everybody, I mean, they were one of the projected favorites after the regular season to win the NBA Finals, but Dallas had other ideas and they ended up upsetting them. So, Thunder, Celtics, NBA Finals preview last night. So, I would not be surprised if both of these teams ended up in the NBA Finals. And with that, those are my reactions to the Wednesday night slate of NBA games. So please comment, like, share, subscribe to Key Time Sports. Also, please like, share, and follow Key City Sports over on Instagram. We are currently doing an expansion between both platforms on YouTube and Instagram. So everybody who has watched the show every day, please watch extensively because we are going to be experiencing some changes for the better in the next coming months. So, one last thing, remember, the key is always on time.